Monday morning, everybody. How is everybody? Welcome to the Advantage Live Show again. So it's a Monday morning. Woo! Another beginning to a week, guys. I hope you guys have had a nice weekend, a relaxing weekend. Got to kind of rejuvenate a little bit, spend some time with some family, do something you like and you enjoy doing. Get refreshed. It's important to do so. I do try to do that. I'll talk a little bit real quick kind of about our weekend. Um, so the past few weeks, we've actually been doing cross country, so it's been kind of very, very busy. Every single Saturday, been doing a lot of stuff, constantly going, traveling, all those type of things. And then we get into this gap time of year where we're not really running or anything, and we finally get a free Saturday. So this Saturday was actually our first free Saturday at home, and I think me and my family might be a little upset with me because I decided to do what I kind of coined that day on Saturday, the big purge. So what I did was I ended up having all the family go through the entire house, their bedrooms and stuff like that, and just purge stuff, trash, donations, all those type of things. Yeah, going into the end of the year, probably a good thing to do. Anybody else out there do a big purge of any kind? I'd like to hear about it. But like, yeah, so that's what we did Saturday. We did it all day Saturday. Got rid of a ton of stuff. I mean, it was just, matter of fact, it was probably more just broken trash than it was actually stuff, to be honest. You just kind of accumulate stuff. So it was kind of fun. I mean, we did it as a family. That was great. Spent some time just kind of goofing off, but also cleaning the house. So, at the end of the day, you felt kind of accomplished. And then, of course, Sunday was church and everything else like that. And had kids had a Christmas special they did at church and sang and stuff. So that was really cool. So just a day of work at home, and as well as some time just to, go to church and be together as a family and do things like that. So it was just a really, good weekend. Hopefully you guys have had something, good over the weekend as well. Some kind of benefits too. But anyway, so today, welcome to Monday. I kind of was thinking through all last week, like what kind of schedule would I want to do this, and how often would I want to do this? And I really wasn't sure. Kind of thinking through it, just kind of been messing around with this, trying to figure out this new system, if this is working, and if it works within my time constraints that I have for just work-life balance stuff. And what I've actually determined is doing this at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. Super kind of, actually not super, it's actually really probably the ideal time. It's like right before I kind of get started in my everyday work routines, before I have to hit the road to travel or anything like that. Typically about 8:30 to 9:30, sometimes 10, somewhere in that zone. It seems to work out pretty good in my schedule. The family's up, moving, working, that kind of stuff. So it's not inconveniencing anybody. So it seems like this time might work. So I'm going to shoot for 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. And right now, probably Monday through Thursday. Friday might be more of a flex day. I tend to probably do on Fridays more of like a recap of what we've covered, this week, and summarize some of the articles we go through, give some actionable, tangible things you can do in your business to kind of think through going into the weekend. So then you can start executing those things come Monday. So that's kind of the structure that I'm working with right now. But look, this is fluid. It's really just a chill time, grab some coffee, come together, hang out. Not really scripted at all. But that's why it works. I think that's why it works for my schedule. It might not be the most entertaining thing out there, which is not my goal. I'll tell you what my goal really is I really desire to be consistently credible. And I don't want to just have quantity out there. We talked about that last week to kind of talk about what it is to be a good agent, and the 5 C's. We kind of went over that, and the ones that really kind of stood out is that consistency and credibility. And I think that really, when I was thinking through the weekend, thinking about what we learned last week, that's what kind of hit home. I was like, you know what? That's ultimately what I want to do here. I want to be consistent in what I'm delivering that's also credible, and not just try to throw out a bunch of information just to have quantity out there and try to play the algorithm games and all that. That's not what I'm doing here. My goal is to kind of cut through the noise of all this news out there, because let's be honest, there is a lot of just constant, inundated news that is hitting all of us in the real estate industry all the time. And it's very confusing for agents, and it's even more confusing for the consumer. So those are the reasons that I'm doing this. That is what propels me to do this. Is I want the truth of what is being said out there in the market to be able to be communicated by agents. I really want to empower agents to have the knowledge they need to articulate what is going on in their markets effectively and correctly. So the whole premise of this is taking you with me as I go through my normal morning routine of going through some news articles and then stopping and kind of thinking through how that correlates to myself, the agents I'm working with, and overall the consumers and family that I represent. So that's the premise of this. That's what this is about. So I appreciate you guys coming along and doing this with me. Those that can make it, great. And also, I like engagement. Don't be bashful to get in there, throw the comments. I'll mention you up there, and I'll talk to you guys about stuff. Love that. I like that engagement. And before I get into some of the articles, excuse me, is it's been interesting. So what I've begun to do is, and this is definitely against every bit of my nature to do this. But again, I want to be able to talk through news articles and help agents do that. So that means I have to kind of spread out to other platforms. So I actually last week started a TikTok account and started uploading some shorts to that. And I'm going to try to work on getting better at doing those, where I'm just taking little nuggets and putting that out onto the TikTok world. And that's all new to me. I don't know anything about TikTok, but feel free to, if you're a TikToker, go over there. It's Agent Mentor Adam. That's the TikTok channel or TikTok account. Look it up, follow it, whatever. And I'm going to try to put little nuggets of information that I get from this live stream into that. But there's been a lot of discussion too. I posted a few of those. I'm getting a few DMs and stuff in regards to some of the articles I've covered. And I think there's some dialogue beginning to happen. So that's fascinating to me. There's a lot of interesting perspectives, not arguing, but kind of pushing back a little bit here and there on certain things. A lot of people are beginning to send me suggestions of news articles. That's awesome. That's kind of what I really want to see happen, is develop a community here where we're talking through things and we're equipping each other and we're working through this, because in no way am I sitting on this side of the camera as the orator of all truth. I am literally just doing a discipline here of reading through the news, kind of trying to figure out exactly what is being said, and I'm trying to articulate it in a way that helps you guys as real estate agents to succeed and represent people very well. So I say all that, consider that going over there, doing that. That would be awesome. It seems to be a quicker way to, talk and communicate with people. And of course, also please, I do want a community. I do want to grow a group of people here that come together multiple times a week and talk through these things. So consider, doing the typical YouTube stuff, right? Subscribing, following, ringing the bell stuff. That does help just to build the community. I want that communication, because it's also even good for me and helping me grow and being better at what I'm doing here and also doing what I do in the workplace. So I appreciate that. For those that are here, thank you last week for all the contributions that you made. That was helpful. Thank you for all the DMs and emails and that kind of stuff and articles. It's been really good. So, all right. With that being said, let's go ahead and jump straight into some news today. So, and I've got a few, and I probably won't spend as much time. We'll try to go through these a little bit faster just for time's sake. But one article I'm going to be talking about is it's basically by Fortune.com. The title is "A New Era in the Housing Market is About to Begin as Affordability Finally Improves for the First Time in a Bunch of Years," economist says. I'm also going to go revisit an article that happened last week, or maybe it was the week before, that came off of Yahoo Finance. And then I'm going to go into another article that they just posted on Yahoo Finance. And I'm going to show you a contrasting image here. And this is really what I'm trying to get out there, is the interesting way that news cycles works and how headlines work, and then what we need to do in response to those things. And this is going to be a great example of that. Then I'm going to go into a USA Today article, and it says, "Which is the better investment, stocks or a home?" And it kind of breaks down what that is. We're going to talk a little bit about a fraud case that has taken place around Temple University, where properties around that were highly inflated to an astronomical amount compared to what the market was giving, and how it was like a ring of people that was kind of involved in doing this. And we'll break that down. And then we're going to talk a little bit kind of technology. We're going to get into like Netflix and Disney and OpenAI and and how that's redefining some of the control that we're seeing online. But then we're going to take that and we're going to correlate that into how does that specifically relate to real estate agents? What does that mean when we start seeing these big companies, not Netflix, buying out, Warner Brothers Studios, right? And if you haven't heard about that, that's the big news. So we're going to kind of talk about that article. And then we'll get a little more lighthearted. We're going to talk about some of the kind of what agents are talking about as far as what is the most like features that buyers are looking for in their homes. And then we'll end with some 7 AI prompts that will help real estate agents win big in 2026, given out by, and I mentioned him once before, Jimmy Burgess on Inman. He's a great trainer and stuff. So I'm going to highlight some of his stuff. So let's go ahead and jump straight into this. This is the first article we're going to do. This is by fortune.com. And the title is "A New Era in the Housing Market is About to Begin as Affordability Finally Improves for the First Time in a Bunch of Years." Here's the thing. I understand that we're coming in here and I'm talking a lot, and it almost seems redundant to me that almost all these articles are talking about what's going to happen in next year, right? And that's the season we're in. Typically in December, that's what we see in the news cycles. It's all about what is the real estate market going to do in 2026, and you got all these predictions going on. And that's fine. I don't mind people's opinions and going through those type of things. I think that's all fine. But in reality, we always need to go back to the data. Ultimately, that's what matters the most is what are we seeing in the data and how does that correlate to the historical data that we see? And then can we take that information and then apply it into what's going to happen in 2026? Obviously, every market's a little different. There's some nuances in there that we can't figure out. I get it. That's all fine. But in reality, these opinions help us to kind of help us expose us to other people's opinions. But then we need to take that and look at it with the data and then go into the more local areas. But I go back to this every single time. I know we're talking about this a lot, but we more often need to be reminded than taught, right? That is kind of the way this works, is we see these headlines and sometimes we can fall right into the trap where we start talking about the headline and not the content of the data. And that's a problem. So we might harp on this a lot, but guys, it's going to equip you so this just becomes the natural quick speak when you're talking to clients and consumers and trying to advise them. And when you're asked that question, how's the market, which is the most common question that real estate agents are asked, by the way, that's what these are going to help you answer. So let's go into this. Let's see what they're having to say here. I mean, it looks like I'm getting a free, oh no, I can't get into it. I got to pay. Never mind. I forgot that fortune.com is a pay site. Oh wait, nope, there it goes. That's all right. I can break this down really quick for you guys, actually. So one of the things that this is kind of reiterating a lot of the information that we actually went over last week, right? So if I just break this article down really, really quick, it's that there is going to be kind of like this balancing of the market going on. You're not going to see a drastic drop in interest rates. You're not going to see a major influx of people pulling into the market. You're seeing more of this catch-up phase going on. So 2026 is going to be more of that. So I was just going to briefly cover a couple things in this article anyway, and jump into a more meat one. But this guy at fortune.com is actually saying the same thing that we covered all last week. So I was bringing on another economist, but that's okay. But what I will say again, this is going right back to this whole point, is we have to be able to articulate and help clients manage all expectations of what they expect to happen in 2026 in light of all of the news articles. So we need to really sit down with our buyers, have those consultations, talk about what affordability will look like, how it's really going to kind of slow down. There's not going to be this huge influx of appreciation in homes. And what we're going to begin seeing is that this income growth is going to go up and homes are going to kind of come back down in balance. That's kind of what we're seeing. So right now, that home value kind of dropping down and income, it's a very, very slow process. And that's really what this article was talking about. It was breaking down kind of how slow that we're going to have this reset take place over 2026. And there was a lot of data inside of this article that I thought was pretty good. They pulled data into it, which I always love because you can verify what they're talking about. So that article is good, but we're going to jump into something. And this is really kind of where I was going to land anyway, because this is fascinating to me. And this is really where I want to hone in about headlines and the consequences and risk of following the typical headline. All right. So you remember last week or the week before, I cannot remember which show it was, but I brought up a news article by Yahoo Finance and they were talking about how the US market, here, I've actually got it. Let me bring this up real quick. This is the article that I went over a week or so ago, right? And the title was this, and I picked it apart. I went through this whole thing, how I just did not like where this person, or this, this expert, if you will, was using this type of language. And I went pretty hardcore on it. U.S. housing market poised to crash worse than 2008, expert warns. And 50% plunge could start in 2026. Protect yourself, right? I kind of dissected this entire article, and then did a bunch of contrasting about what was going on in all the other news cycles and how it contradicted what this was. Here's the fascinating thing. This will show you example of like how media will use headlines to sell ads, but then when there's an overwhelming push against them, they end up pushing out another article that contradicts a previous ran article. Now, I'm not holding Yahoo Finance or MoneyWise at the full accountability of everything that appears on their site, right? To be honest, they're probably more of an aggregate for a bunch of news sources. They have a lot of different opinion pieces. They have a lot of different sources. But I would say that as a entity, it's very important that we make sure that what we are sending out there is credible, reliable, and that we have an accountability for when we push information out. What we say in word or actions or anything in writing there's an accountability aspect to that. So if you're going to put out an article that says this, right, and then this is what you're portraying as truth, which is what it's doing, and then a week later you put out an article that says this: housing affordability may improve next year, but don't expect a market crash. Notice the difference here, right? Worse than 2008, poised to crash. And then you have housing affordability may improve next year, but don't expect a market crash. Same website, right? This is another reason I emphasize the whole entire concept of what is called reading across the tabs. I am not reading all of my news from one source. I'm not going to harp on Yahoo Finance and these people to be that I can't use them, I'll never read them. Matter of fact, I would say read them, but contrast them with what else is out there and kind of help yourself discern what is really going on. And we are so fortunate in real estate that we actually have access to data. We have access to the data that can help us to predict what might happen. Now, it doesn't mean it's 100% accurate, but we do have data. We don't have to go into the hyperbole that these type of articles portray. And so here we are, two contrasting articles, right? So let's break this one down, and I won't go back to this one. You can go back and watch the live stream, but I found this extremely fascinating that within a week or so that they would have this kind of article and then immediately have this article on the same site. So it just emphasizes the importance of using multiple sources to come to your conclusions before you start speaking as if it's the truth, right? Lower mortgage rates and slowing home price appreciation should make buying a little easier in 2026. Again, this is just a complete contrasting of the other article. This is Claire Boston, senior reporter. All right. For more than 3 years, it's been dismal to be a home buyer, but in 2026, things might get a little easier. Housing affordability is poised to improve next year as mortgage rates decrease slightly and home price appreciation slows down. Those conditions, provided they hold, could bring more buyers and sellers off the sidelines and into the market during the traditional busy spring home buying season, and help home sales notch their first significant gain since they plunged in 2023 to levels not seen since the mid-1990s. So again, this is the whole thing. Is I can read this article, I can look at every other single article and say, yeah, I can kind of see where these statements align with multiple other people's opinions. It does not align with the previous article, right? So by reading across tabs and across news sources, I get a better understanding about what's happening. So when I come to certain articles, I can discern a little bit better about what is going on here. And that's the importance of this. All right, so she quotes in here, it's quote, "It's really only the start of a long process," end quote. Head of she said Shin Zhao, head of economics research at the brokerage Redfin, quote, "For a lot of people, they're still not necessarily going to be able to get into the housing market," end quote. So she's right. There's going to be a lot of there's a gap here. There's an income gap. There's an affordability gap. There's these type of things that are happening. We are seeing this across the board, locally, everywhere. That's what we see. There's a gap. And that's why I would say a reset is taking place here. That makes perfect sense with what we're reading. Slow price growth. All right. Yep. When many people think scenarios that would make homes more affordable, what often comes to mind is events like the global financial crisis, which sent U.S. home prices down an average of 27%. Okay, they're referencing that moment, right? They're sitting here talking about it. So that would cause some uncertainty. But then what are the very next statement? And I love this. That's not on deck for 2026, period. Right? Because why? They're using the data to come to that conclusion. While it's possible that home prices fall slightly on average next year, few housing experts expect a crash because the country still has a shortage of homes. Again, contrasting exactly what was said here, right? Contrasting this, it's completely different statements. So this, I would say, aligns with more of what economists are saying. So instead of it just being an opinion piece, they're referencing certain sources. I can kind of get behind this one, right? All right, many economists forecast only modest home price gains of 1 to 3% next year. Yeah, so this is the thing, and I would say this again: what the Feds are trying to do, and the interest rates, and all those type of scenarios, what they're trying to do is bring balance to the market. They're trying to bring everything back into some form of equilibrium, where appreciation is not going rampant and running wild, and that the income threshold is going up. So finding the balance between those two things. So that is the goal, is that 1 to 3% of appreciation month over month or over a year is really where we kind of want to be. And then let the interest rate settle just a little bit. Let it rest. Let the emotion kind of dissipate out of our industry. So that way things can come back into balance and people feel more comfortable to buy and sell. So that's what we need to see. I would 100% agree with this. Lower mortgage rates would also help affordability and are a real possibility. Rates have been hovering around 6.2 in recent months, and many economists expect them to average somewhere in the low 6 range next year. That's down from this year's average of about 6.6. I would agree 100% with this. What almost every single article that we're seeing is saying is we're going to be probably closer to the 6% range. And all last week, I made the whole entire argument about this. Like, for the emotional state of America right now, to drop that as a marketable aspect of below 6 would create an influx of emotion back into the market. They're playing the emotion game here, right? They're trying to eliminate the emotion, bring balance. So yes, I would say, yeah, average with like 6.6, we're seeing closer to 6.2. We're going to be hovering right around that, given a couple points here and there. Could be wrong, guys. This is an opinion in some ways, but it's an opinion based off of kind of what most of these economists and other people are researching the data are saying, and it makes sense. It just makes sense. Across the year, this is quote, across the year, there will be an improvement, end quote. And this is by Danielle Hale. Most of the times that she makes statements, she's using data to go from. She has a lot of articles on Realtor.com you can check out. I do advise you to do so. It's actually really helpful. She references a ton of data. Now, sometimes her articles can be kind of dull because it is data rich, but take some time, read at least once a week. Quote, we expect monthly payments to be a little bit lower for the first time in 5 years, end quote. The power of 6. Even relatively small drops in mortgage rates can translate to meaningful changes in monthly payments. A homeowner with a $320,000 mortgage at 6.8%, where rates were at the beginning of the year, would pay about $2,086 toward their loan each month. At 6.2%, where rates are now, they'd pay $1,960, right? So they're putting more equity into their home. So that little significant drop is still good. They're putting way more equity into their home. Quote, there's noticeably more activity the closer to 6 we get, said Mike Simonson, chief economist at the real estate brokerage Compass. This is great. This is a great article, right? So, and you can kind of see, I'm going to help you kind of think through this. It's like, what are we seeing? Well, in this article, we are seeing multiple references, multiple quotes from multiple different economists. This makes this article a more balanced article. It's bringing content in there and bring balance into our understanding that this isn't just one person's opinion. This isn't just one person's article writing and trying to, put some information that they want to put in there. What are they doing? They're going out, being a reporter, asking the question to economists that are looking at the data and coming back with quotes to validate what they're writing. I think it's the way you handle news cycles. Let's see. We're going to jump on down. I think that might be it. We'll 2 markets regionally. Yep, there'll be a regional differences. Again, this is all local anyway. All right, very good. So let's kind of talk about this just a little bit. So we just saw just now we saw two different contrasting articles from the exact same source. So what do we know from that? Well, we now know that we want to read multiple news articles about any topic in general. We want to be able to get very familiar from all sides and all perspectives, and then come to the conclusion where the data leads us. So the truth is in there. We have to read through this. It's not just looking on social media, seeing some kind of post out there and saying, oh, that's true, and then sharing it and reposting it and being this complete reactionary without any discipline to what that is actually saying. That's reckless, right? You represent clients out there. You cannot be reckless with information. It is your duty to protect what you are saying. Is, like I said at the very beginning, what I want to be: credible and consistently credible. You need to be credible. If you share something that is proven wrong, you hurt your credibility. And don't just do it just for the sake of having some kind of another social media post. So this is a great contrasting to show you the differences between two articles on the exact same platform, and what are you to do with that. Now, if I was going to get into this and talk about action items to help you guys with this, what I would say is this: is provide some some assurances to your sellers. Talk about, if they're hearing articles about a crash due to low inventory, high homeowner equity, and all these type of things where it makes them have fear. Start talking to your sellers about what the market is actually doing and stability that is probably going to come in 2026. Take an article like this and the quotes from these economists and use that in your social media posts to say, hey, look, I'm not saying I know everything, but what I am reading and what I'm seeing these economists that I have grown to trust, and across the board, I've grown to trust these multiple economists. Most of them are saying we're having a crash, right? So guiding that assurance to your seller is so important. Take the leadership position and guide them effectively in bringing assurance into the market. It's very, very crucial. Now, what I'd also say is with the buyers, the exact same thing. Now's a good time to buy, but here's the thing: you need to be, patient kind of with them, especially new time buyers. Prepare them more. Explain what the affordability will do. What does this mean going to 2026 for a buyer that's never bought? What does this mean for a buyer that's maybe moving to another location? And what is this interest rate? How does that correlate, compared to renting? All these type of things. We need to be able to make sure we are very consistent in understanding like how this all works, and that we're not leading into a market where there's like this mass foreclosures going on in the market, and then buyers can come in there and swoop in and buy, distressed homes and get a deal. That's not what we're going to see. What we are going to see is a more balancing of the income versus appreciation. That's what we're going to see. Okay. That's going to be 2026. And that's pretty much what all these articles are saying. All right. Very good. All right. Let's go into the next one here. This one's an interesting conversation. If you guys are out there, join in and have a chat with me here about this, because this is interesting. This one here is going to be talking about stocks versus home ownership. Let me see if I can zoom in just a little bit. There we go. So the title of this is on usatoday.com. Daniel DeVos is the author of this. And the title is, which is the better investment, stocks or a home? Answers here. Does it say this is on the money topic? Doesn't say opinion piece. It's under real estate. All right. So we always kind of look at your sources and see what we've got going on. What you need to know: the article compares investing in stocks versus buying a home, noting that historically stocks have yielded substantially higher returns while home offers shelter, tax advantages, forced savings, and lower volatility, making the choice depend on personal goals and circumstances. Okay. Then this is a breakdown of the article. All right, here we go. Soaring home prices in recent years may have you convinced real estate rises in value at the same rate as stocks. I would say that a lot of people would probably believe this. But again, that might be historical norms. We got to look at the broader picture here, right? You may be in for a surprise. Over the past 30 years, stock prices have risen at 4 times the pace of home prices, according to Motley Fool analysis. Now, if you don't know what Motley Fool is a website that gives a lot of advice in regards to investing in stocks. You can subscribe to be part of their group, and you can get stock advice from them. Again, stocks are interesting. You better learn or hire a professional to do it, because you can really lose a lot of money if you're not careful. Quote, by and large, stocks are your best returning asset class. Nothing really comes close, end quote, said Matthew Argesinger, a senior investment analyst at the Motley Fool. Now, we got to put this in perspective, right? So I hope this is what this article will do. So let's just keep reading, and I'll kind of elaborate maybe as this develops. Here's another way to compare the two investments. Between 92 and 2024, the S&P yielded an average return of 10.4% a year, according to the financial journalism site Investopedia. In the same years, home prices grew by about 5.5% annually. All right, so they're comparing appreciation values here, and that's fine if you're looking at the economical aspect of home appreciation alone. Now, I think just from the statement underneath the headline is it's going to get into this, but there is a little bit of a different play you can do inside of real estate to bring value up, right? You can make repairs, you can do additions, invest in your home and create more equity, which then makes your return even greater. But let's just take it at face value, and that's what's happening right now. He's basically just taking it at face value. He's saying, here's the yield of the return on stock, and here's what the appreciation is of homes. Okay, so face value. Quote, if your objective is to invest either in a home or the stock market to generate long-term wealth that will help you retire, the stock market is unquestionably the better performer, end quote, said Caleb Silver, editor-in-chief of Investopedia. Quote, but you need a place to live, end quote. See, that's the thing, right? You do need a place to live. You can't just exist and invest in stocks. Homes provide shelter, right? A home is more than an investment. So here's where we're going to get into a little bit of probably the argument for home ownership. So weigh in, guys. A home is more than an investment. And herein lies the enduring appeal of the American home. It is an asset. It is an investment. It is also your castle. That's good. It is. It's all those things, right? So there's a little bit of leveraging going on here between stocks, what you can do with stocks and what you can do with a home. Quote, I would encourage people to think of a home as two things, end quote, said Brian Kearns, a CPA and certified financial planner in the Chicago area. Quote, one, it's shelter. Two, it's the place where you live your life, end quote. So that's true. That's what it is. It's both of those things. So it's addressing two aspects of life. Stock is only addressing one, your financial well-being, right? Nothing perhaps can boost your quality of life like a nice home if you're setting your base. Kearns and other experts say it's a mistake to think of a home as a mere investment. And it's probably not quite fair to compare homes and stocks. They are very different assets. This is being very fair, all right? And this is where, and I'm pretty sure I can see where this is kind of going. And this is where I would actually be completely honest and make sense, right? When you start talking about wealth building and you start talking about investing, diversification is the game, because one can perform better in certain markets, the other performs better in another market, and it's balancing the two that makes wealth possible. So you're weighing these options. Now, I am not a financial planner or advisor. I would talk and hire somebody to do that for me, right? But the just concept makes perfect sense, right? I'm not going to put all my eggs in wealth building into just my home, right? And just pour money into that. There's a risk there. I'm also at the same time not going to pour all of my money into stocks. That's a high risk. But there are certain types of investments in both categories that make sense for wealth building. So this article is bringing some balance to that. So I do like kind of where this is going. Home versus stocks, which is the better investment? Still, many Americans wrestle with the question of how to invest their limited funds. Option A, buy a home, a transaction that locks you into potentially burdensome monthly mortgage payments and seemingly endless maintenance expenses. Option B, rent a home or apartment, a choice that could free up extra cash for investing in stocks. Could it though? Could it though? Right? That's the argument. That's all relative. That's a very subjective position because it depends on what you pay for a house. You could be very frugal and buy a smaller home and live frugally and not have a bunch of stuff and come out way ahead on owning a home and not rent, because rent traditionally is higher. But let's just say, for argument's sake, for the conversation of this article, okay. All right? Okay. Let's just go with this. Given the historic performance of stocks, option B might be a quicker and more efficient way to build wealth, Silver said. Between mortgage costs, insurance, property taxes, and maintenance costs, a home can be an exceedingly expensive asset. And it doesn't generate anywhere near the returns that investing in the stock market has generated historically, Silver said. Homeownership in the American dream. But there are distinct advantages to option A. When you buy a home with a mortgage, you enter a years-long cycle of building equity with your mortgage payments and the gradual appreciation of the home's value. quote, it's basically forced savings. I think that's great. Here's the thing. Historically, people are really bad at saving money. All right. They're really bad at it. One of the best ways, to probably just save money is where there's like an automatic withdrawal into certain accounts that you can't get to very easily, like CDs and things like that. Like starting those up, but also put it into savings that's with a different bank that doesn't have a checking account attached to it, because you can't just transfer the money over. That's another great way to do it. Um, Having your company withhold, for 401ks and that kind of stuff is evidence that we're not good at saving money, right? So these are the categories. So the argument that he just made there, I love that your home is basically a forced savings account, right? Because think about it. Every time you go out, you buy a house, you have interest where the banks are making their money, but you're making equity. You're paying down the debt of that home while appreciation is taking place over the life of that loan. So it's forcing you to build some wealth, right? And it has to sit there because you're locked in. You either have to sell it, take that money, and roll it into something else. So you are actively saving money, right? So great statement. It's basically forced savings. I love that statement. I might use that sometime later. So thank you. Homeownership has helped millions of Americans achieve the American dream. Yep. Quote, I think for people who grew up in poverty, having that kind of forced savings can be a way of lifting yourself up out of poverty, end quote, said Amy Arnott, a portfolio strategist at Morningstar. If you choose option B, to rent a home and invest in stocks, you must have the discipline to follow through. No one will be forcing you to buy the stocks. And that's the other thing too, is you can always sell the stocks. See, with a home, you live in that home or you have other investments, it's not as easy to liquidate that if you need to. Like if you need quick cash, it's not that simple. You have to then sell the property. So you're forced, again, that statement is so good. You are forced to save money because you can't just liquidate it that quick without losing a lot of equity. With stock, it's a little more fluid. I could sell out and take that money and do whatever I want with that. So there's a lot more discipline that comes with owning stock. And you have to be very diligent. And then also at the same time, it can be a very emotional thing. As a matter of fact, a few years ago, I spent a lot of time just kind of doing some buying stocks in myself and just kind of playing around with it and just enjoying it, just having some fun with play money. But at the same time, it's an addictive thing. And then wanting to sit on it and just let it sit there while the market's going down, oh boy, that's a very, very hard thing to do. And I actually quit doing it because it became kind of more of an obsession with me because I got too much into the data and I was like, yeah, this is not healthy. I'd rather hire somebody to do that kind of investing for me and just let it sit there, just like any other kind of investment, right? That's the better play. So again, I like that because he's pointing out the risk of both. He's weighing both these options. I keep doing this. I know that's so popular. As a matter of fact, I posted one of the TikTok shorts that it automatically cut it out. The opening thing was like this. I was like 6, 7. Gosh. Oh man. The myth of soaring home values. Many consumers wrongly assume home prices rise as dramatically as stocks, experts say. One reason is that homes have been on a tier lately, increasing in value by about 2/5. Okay. Yeah, so a little bit of appreciation, but again, you're playing a little bit of a game there. You're still in it for the long haul. Long haul. These are both of these are long haul plays, right? That sounds like a massive increase, and it is in dollar terms. But in percentage terms, home prices are up only about 38% in 5 years. By contrast, the S&P 500 is up about 86% in 5 years. If you own a house over if you own a house over a couple of decades, the house should keep pace with inflation, end quote, Arnott said. Quote, but it's typically not going to create the kind of growth that you could get with a stock. All right. I'm going to go back. It's diversification that wins the day. Diversification. Volatility, home prices rise and fall, but not like stock prices. Utility, a home is a physical asset. A stock is not. You can live in your home, solving that shelter problem. You can allow other people to live in it, yielding rental income. Again, there's so much different flexibility that can take place here inside of a home. Homes are considered more stable investment than stocks, partly because they are physical assets. Yeah, you own something physical, which is the definition of real real estate. It's something real, right? Leveraging. When you buy a home with a fractional down payment, you are making a leveraged investment. Leverage multiplies your returns. Let's say you have 20% equity in the home. If your house goes up to 2% to a 3% a year, because you have the leverage, your return can be 10 to 15% a year, right? So there's your leverage. There's leverage there in that increase of appreciation. Some armchair investors, which is what I was doing a few years ago, dabble in leveraged stock investments, but leveraged stocks can be risky. Amen. And it's a very difficult discipline, and it can be addictive. Liquidity, I talked about that. Your home may be worth $500,000, but that's not money you can easily spend. That's right. It's not accessible. Maintenance costs. So you see that he's doing a contrasting of the two, right? Homeownership is expensive. Tax breaks. Homeowners reap sweet tax benefits. You're generally allowed to deduct both mortgage interest and property tax, assuming you itemize. If you sell your primary residence, you may be able to avoid tax on up to 250,000 capital gains, 500,000 on that. Investors who sell stocks at a profit, by comparison, generally face capital gains tax. You can't avoid it. You have to pay it. Yeah, you just pay that. So again, to summarize that article, and this is good to have this conversation. I'm all about home ownership, and I would say for the majority of people that does not have funds that they can just throw into the stock market, the home is the better investment. And every realtor out there is probably saying, yeah, amen. And it's true though. It's true when you start really thinking about the options you have. That forced savings, because it helps you to be disciplined. You can't liquidate it that quick, so you can't access those funds that quickly. It provides shelter, right? So it's addressing so many more things. I can invest in my home by putting more features into it, renovations, those type of things, and bring my equity up. So all those type of scenarios gives me more control over my asset. Now, given it's a huge amount of debt, but at the same time, the leverage is there. So for those that don't have a home, I would lean that way, not rent. I do not like the renting idea. You're overpaying for rent just to try to free up more cash. My argument would be you live a more simple life and a smaller life. Don't be extravagant. Save money, right? And then you can invest in stocks, and that's where diversification comes in. That's what you should be doing. So what should you do? What's some action items here, right? Well, I would say this is if you're thinking about going into the stock market investment, go hire a true financial planner, someone that understands the stock market. You can do what they said, like the armchair investing. I would do more of the long-term play. I've done both. I would do the long-term play. But I would also, at the same time, equip yourself with understanding and monitoring the S&P 500's performance over time. And look at it. Educate yourself in the stock market before you ever invest in it. Understand what it is that you're putting your money into before you do it, right? Same with real estate. Know what you're buying. Like, don't just go out and buy something. As agents, when I'm speaking to agents, like, guys, like, put your clients in homes that they can afford. Talk to them about the relationship aspect of investing in wealth building. Be the advocate for the consumer to help them build wealth. Have conversations about diversification. Get equipped yourself and have that dialogue. Look, our industry is a referral-based industry. Do not think of the one transaction as the end. It's not. The end is long-term play of referrals. And that comes through serving the client well. Lean into serving them. Asking the right questions, helping guide them to buy the right sized home. Don't get them into homes they can't afford just because you make a bigger paycheck. That relationship, servant leadership position of selling is way, 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 way better than just constantly scripting and overselling, because it's a referral-based business. Last week we talked about selling versus that conversation relational type selling, right? They're two very different things. Lean into this. And this is a conversation. That's why I wanted to talk about this, is understanding wealth building to help your clients get there. What a great blessing that would be, right? To help them do that. What about this? Positioning real estate as a hedge that gives them ability to then be able to invest, right? Having dialogue and scripts that talk about that. Like, what is the importance of buying this home, and what does that look like? And then how do you take this and then diversify your assets and protect yourself against all inflation or crashings of the markets or whatever might happen by diversification, right? Having this type of conversation is really, really good, right? But you got to know these things. You need to research these things. You need to get to know these things to be able to have these conversations effectively. All right, let's go into another. This is going to be a little bit of a deeper conversation, guys. But I'm just going to talk about it just more of a helicopter style. All right, let me zoom in just a little bit. The title of this, there we go. Can't get it. The title of this article is "Properties Around Temple University Weren't Selling. until a real estate agent nearly doubled the asking price. So at first you're like, wait, wow, is this a strategy? Is this, wow, how do you do this? Should I go out and overprice my properties? This is where uh, reading more is highly important and not just reading the headlines because once you get into this article, you're going to see really quick that that's not what's happening here. So this is by MSN.com. Story by Ryan Briggs, William Bender, the Philadelphia Inquirer. That's where it's coming from. So let's talk about this. An 8-bedroom row house at that address, 1734 North Grant Street, for example, languished on the real estate market after being listed for sale. Like many dorm-like apartments left in the wake of a rental boom that fizzled amid declining student enrollment. So, all right, so we've already established a couple of things. At this university, there's been a stagnant, overbuilt homes to address rentals going on around this campus, this university. But then we see already that there's a declining in student enrollment. So at the very beginning, we know that there's not as many students going to this college, okay? So we see a shift in this market. So how is it that somebody could list a property at one price and double it and then sell it? You got to ask a lot of questions when we read headlines like this. What? Makes you think, like, how did this happen, right? All right. The property went up for sale in April of 2024 for $475,000, $40,000 less than the owner had paid 2 years prior. It sat on the market for 1 year with no takers. Then, real estate agent Patrick C. Fay got involved. In April of 2025, the Grat Street row house was relisted for $875,000. Holy moly, double price, right? A year later, mind you, a year later, after it being priced at the $475K mark, the very same day it was listed as a pending sale, with Fay representing the buyer, according to real estate data from the Realtors multiple listing service. Fascinating. Makes you pause, right? What's going on here? An Inquirer review of 33 other sales by Fay brokered over the last year showed a similar pattern. After properties went unsold at lower prices, Fay stepped in as a buyer's agent and almost immediately arranged a sale for anywhere from $290,000 to nearly $550,000 more than sales originally asked for. What's going on here, right? Now, this is going back last week. I talked about fraud and how we got to really be careful about these type of things. And we really do need to be talking to our consumers about different types of fraud out there and what people can do. The more people get desperate, the more they compromise their morals and the more they make bad decisions. And we can already, just from that first opening paragraphs, see where we're heading with this. There is clearly something going on here that is not above board at all. Something's way off. And the fact that he's representing both sides and having a double in an increase in price, fascinating, right? All right. On average, Fay's clients have paid about double the original listing. Fay, who worked out of Coldwell Banker's offices in Old City and Morristown, Burlington County, has now represented buyers in at least $40 million worth of settled or pending real estate deals involving multifamily properties around Temple. That's a lot of money, guys. After this, and then to quote here, to make a statement here, and this is all about Coldwell Banker, it looks like. It says, after this article published online Friday, the real estate firm cut ties with Fay and his biographical page was removed from its site. Quote, the agent is no longer affiliated with Coldwell Banker Realty, end quote, a company spokesperson said by email. Of about a dozen properties in the area that sold for more than $750,000 over the last 90 days, everyone listed Fay as the buyer's agent. Holy moly. The Inquirer's examination of the deals found the sales involve a small group of repeat buyers. Here comes the story now, right? A small group of repeat buyers. So same people repeating and buying it, including two linked to an earlier prosecution over 2000s era mortgage fraud scheme. So early 2000, these people were linked to a scheme. So we're dealing with some people that were in the era that caused the big crash. This is crazy, right? What drives people to do this? Like, man. In that case, federal investigators found that the group was involved with purchasing distressed homes using artificially inflated mortgages, pocketing the excess money, and allowing the properties to lapse into foreclosure. Look at that. What a scheme. Federal investigators found that the group was involved with purchasing distressed homes. So they would inflate the price. So they find distressed homes, go out and buy them, pocket the excess money of the difference, and allowing the properties to lapse into foreclosure. Wow. Fay, who is one of the top agents in his Cobalt office, no longer part of the Cobalt brokerage, by the way, said his transactions were all above board. He credited the high sale prices to rebounding demand for student housing in the Temple University area. That's interesting. Okay, so here we go. So he was pushed, all right, and he responds by saying the demand for student housing. If we go to the very beginning of the article, what did we point out at the very beginning? Enrollment was down. They had less enrollment. So again, this is where data matters, right? Data totally matters. Just fascinating. Quote, I think it's a desirable area for sure, end quote, said Faye, who lives in the Morristown. Quote, they just had their biggest enrollment of all time, end quote. Okay, then what is the, here we go. Actually, Temple's head of admissions resigned last month after the university missed its annual enrollment goal. Its student population remains below 30,000, down from a high 8 years ago of more than 40,000. Quote, this is not a good time for being a property owner around Temple, end quote, said Nick Pizzola, vice president of the Temple Area Property Association, a group that represents many landlords. I mean, rents are down, vacancies are up, he said. It's a buyer's market. The financing on phase sales is provided by higher risk private lenders, which grew in popularity as conventional bank lending contracted in the wake of 2008 real estate crash. John Hornick, head of the National Private Lenders Association, a trade group that represents firms like the ones that lent to phase clients, recently flagged sales around Temple on a watch list the group maintains for suspicious transactions. It has a simple explanation for these market-defining sales. Quote, these are bad actors inflating the value of the real estate through the sales structure, and therefore borrowing more money than they really should be able to, Hornick said in the interview. Quote, there's real estate there, there's a borrower there, but the values are off, end quote. Faye, who described himself on Instagram as a partner in the upscale Center City Irish bar. Okay, well, yeah, so business records show Faye is listed as a debtor to an Atlanta-based company called Real Commissions, which lets real estate agents tap into cash based solely on the promise of a forthcoming commission, so long as they have a signed agreement of sale in hand. So it's cash advancement. So he's in debt for cash advancement. Yeah, this is just wild to me. I'm just going to kind of skim through this real quick and wrap this up. But yeah, Pal Avery did not respond, so it's an attorney. Yeah, so what could happen here, guys? Like this is dangerous stuff. A couple things, like when the market gets really bad and this kind of stuff begins to happen, people do crazy things, and there's obviously this guy's got needs here for money that's making him compromise in so many ways. Man, whew, what a mess. And there's a lot of people going to be involved in this, I'm sure. I mean, a ring of buyers, all the same. There's going to be some major investigations coming out of this. What a mess. But here's kind of what I would say, just as a reminder, is obviously this is like the extreme. All right, this is extreme. But this kind of behavior does not start that extreme. It starts with justifying small little compromises. It starts with saying, you know, that little problem in that house, I don't really need to disclose that, do I? And asking those kind of questions like, does the buyer really need to know? Like all these little micro, compromises in integrity and morality is where you end up going. Because if you start making compromises for a paycheck, this is ultimately where you lead. This guy didn't wake up one day and just say, I'm going to start doing these type of things. No, it was something he was doing periodically throughout his whole life. And that's the sad part about it, is he probably had multiple times to correct his behavior and fix these things, but he just kept going deeper and deeper into this and ended up creating a circle. Now, innocent until proven guilty. Evidence seems crazy to me. There's probably way more to this story. But at face value, from what we're reading in this article, and I would love to read more articles from other sources like I would do. I would encourage you to do likewise. I'm not going to take this one article He's probably got an argument. But I will say there's definitely something going on. And because this affects more than just him and those buyers and those sellers, it affects that entire market. Because what he's actually doing is he's inflating the value of homes around Temple, which pushes out buyers, which can ruin a city. So very reckless stuff here. Very, very reckless stuff. So yeah, flat out sad. All right. One more kind of deeper conversation here, and then we're going to jump into just really quick, lighthearted things to point out, and then we'll wrap up, guys. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. All right, this next article here that we're going to be talking about is kind of lighthearted, but it's just something we just need to kind of hash out just a little bit and think through this because it's in the news. And this is on Inman. Inman's all about real estate, so this is going to have a real estate leaning towards it. It's how Netflix, Disney, and OpenAI are redefining control online. From media mergers to AI deals, the latest moves show how power, access, and audience ownership are shifting. So if you didn't know, and you probably have heard this, Netflix is now in the process. It's got to go through some regulations, make sure it's not being like a monopolistic type entity. They're trying to acquire Warner Brothers. They've negotiated with Warner Brothers. They've got an agreement in place. It's got to go through a couple things. Probably won't be finalized until like this time next year or maybe even later. So it takes some time to kind of get through these type of things. But what's going on is still, we need to have this conversation because it helps us to kind of think and frame our minds around what could be happening as far as our data is concerned and what are these big companies doing. Because now what's also happening is Disney is making a play to buy OpenAI. And that's an interesting play as well. So what is it that they're trying to do here, right? What is the play for a company like Disney to buy out a massive AI platform that's integrated through tons and tons of services? Like what is the game here? And how does this really relate to real estate? I think this article did a good job kind of laying this out. The balance of power online is shifting. Media companies are consolidating, platforms are tightening control, and the tools shaping visibility and distribution are changing faster than most professionals can adapt. How many of you guys would agree that that's exactly what happens in real estate, right? Things change, adapt so quick. We have to stay on point and stay relevant so much. And that's what this is even talking about. Like even just framing our mind around the real estate thing, we need to stay informed in what is going on out there, right? We've got to stay informed. It changes so fast. From entertainment giants merging to social platforms, rewriting the rules around access, audience, and automation, the signal is consistent. Leverage is moving upstream. What connects these developments isn't novelty, it's control. Who owns the relationship with the audience? Who sets the rules and who absorbs the risk when systems change? Netflix Warner Bros. Bet and the warning inside consolidation. Netflix $83 billion takeover of Warner Bros. Has triggered backlash across Hollywood and political corners alike. But the real story isn't cultural panic or partisan outrage. It's consolidation. After years of growth at all costs, streaming giants are shifting toward control of distribution, data, and leverage. Even it comes at the expense of creative autonomy. All right? So how do we frame this? So what's really happening here is there is a play to take data and to consolidate, because when you have all these different silos going on and all these different systems, and like if you go back a few years ago, you had the cable TV. I could change a channel and watch shows and digest it that way. And then you had this departmentalizing of all of your media outlets, and they all became silos in themselves, and there wasn't one system that everybody goes to, and now everybody's paying for services on multiple devices or multiple streaming services, right? Paramount, CBS, Netflix, Hulu, Prime, all these different things are just segmented out. But then it makes it very difficult for them to then navigate an ever-changing market. So consolidation becomes a big play. So Warner Brothers being kind of behind in the streaming game and have to outsource it to other sources and that kind of stuff to get their shows out there. And Netflix being a massive movie show producing company said, hey, you know what? Maybe we're better together. So they approach Warner Brothers, they strike up a deal. We see this happen all the time in real estate. We're seeing a lot of big companies like Zillow and Redfin and Rocket Mortgage, all these type of things coming in and acquiring other companies and merging into one. It's that consolidation. It's that control. It's the power, and it's also the data. So that's what's happening. So when you start looking at these type of plays, that's what we see in our industry. So we see all this, and we need to be very informed about how this correlates. And to be honest, this is kind of going into like social media arguments and all this kind of stuff. Is you got to be careful putting all your eggs in one basket, because these type of things can happen just left and right. So making sure that you have a brand that you adhere to and it's your brand and that's what it is, and then combining it with another brand is good. But there's this contrasting of control versus freedom, and it's tugging at you, and be on point. Be on point with your brand. So be aware that there's all kinds of this kind of stuff going on, and just knowing what that looks like. All right. Meta promises better account support after years of agent frustration. Meta, which is Facebook and all of them, says it's making it easier to get help with when Facebook or Instagram accounts are hacked. So there's some of this kind of stuff going on. See, the company also says AI driven. For many users, especially small businesses and agents who rely on social platforms for visibility and lead flow, the announcement lands with cautious optimism. Account access issues have long been one of the most painful failure points in social marketing, with limited human support and slow recovery timelines. So this is kind of talking about like when there's a breach in your account and it shuts you down. We've had a few agents this happens to, where like someone hacks their account and uses it wrong, or maybe they accidentally use the terms wrong. There's no way to like get help from these major like Meta, like Facebook. Like we've had agents get their pages shut down because of someone hacked it and did something wrong with it, and they can never recover it. So overnight, they lose every following, every like, comment, everything they had in the past is gone because of that one mistake. So this is kind of going back to what I just said. All eggs in one basket is risky, because if all you have is Facebook, or all you have is Instagram, or whatever the case may be, like Zillow leads, all of that is dictated by another entity. That cannot be your sole way of doing business. But now I like that Facebook and stuff is aware of that, and they're trying to fix these type of problems, and AI is probably going to help with a lot of that kind of stuff. I can't imagine the amount of information they have to go through as far as tech support goes and all that. I'd say it's just astronomically high, but still it's a problem, and that's why we have to be very, very careful at this. Australia's under 16 social media ban could reshape your audience. If you're in Australia, that could come across America if you have a younger demographic that's using your social media accounts, which in real estate, that would not be a common thing for us whatsoever. So I'm just going to skip that one together. OpenAI's GPT 5.2 release shows how fast the AI arms race is accelerating. OpenAI rolled out GPT 5.2 this week after an internal code red response to competitive pressure from Google's Gemini 3, underscoring just how quickly the AI landscape is shifting. AI is going so fast, so quick. It's unbelievable. The new model family promises better performance across writing, spreadsheets, presentations, coding, and long-form analysis with OpenAI. The timing matters. All right, what this means for real estate professionals. AI tools will help keep changing, will keep changing faster than best practices can keep up. Agents don't need to chase every new model, but they do need to understand how AI fits into their workflow, especially for content, organization, and analysis. The advantage isn't using the newest tool first. It's knowing how to use the tools well, consistently with human judgment, still firmly in the loop. Logistics are more important than having AI be the face of you. Trust me. I lean into the workflow of AI, but be human. Be human. All right. Disney's OpenAI deal shows how IP holders are choosing control over resistance. Disney has signed a 3-year partnership with OpenAI that will allow its characters to appear inside Sora, OpenAI's AI video generator, alongside a $1 billion equity investment in the company. So there's a little bit of ownership going on. And what are they doing? They're allowing their characters to appear inside of this AI. Why would they do that? Why would they do that? Because they can control the likeness. So that way there's not a bunch of fake Mickey Mouses going around. You have the real likeness of Mickey. And many other reasons, but that's just the surface one. OpenAI's video generator alongside, the agreement gives users access to hundreds of characters across Disney, Pixar, Marvel, and Star Wars, while keeping talent likenesses and voices off limits. So this is their way to control their protective intellectual rights, right, through AI. So they're going to be able to protect the voices, the likenesses, the characters, all that kind of stuff through this move. The move is notable not because Disney is embracing AI uncritically, but because it's choosing structured access over unchecked use. After pursuing legal action against platforms that used its characters without permission, Disney is now drawing clear boundaries around how its intellectual property can be generated, distributed, and monetized inside AI systems. So this, to be honest, this is good because one of the risks of AI is it can just run rampant and do whatever it wants, and there's no checks and balances for anything. And in some ways, Disney's play here does do that for their own benefit, but also it does protect a business and their intellectual properties. So I could see other companies following suit with this. So this is kind of where we're in this unknown area of what AI is really going to do in the future. What this means for real estate agents: AI visuals are becoming easier to produce, but control still matters more than speed. Agents using generative tools should be clear about brand boundaries, permissions, and consistency. The lesson isn't to copy Disney's scale, it's to recognize that protecting your brand and choosing where it appears will matter more as AI content becomes effortless. So that's the thing too, is it's so quick and easy to go into chat and just drop in a bunch of information and just let it run, and then taking that and just running with it and not think about your brand. Like, don't not take it not really truly look at it and say, is this really on brand point, or am I just looking for quantity of information, right? Is that what all I'm looking for? All right. So a couple takeaways from this. You know, there's kind of a lot in that. I think just as agents, being aware of the national conversations about mergers and acquisitions, we need to make sure we frame that into our minds in regards to what's happening in our industry. There is consolidation of data, there is consolidation of power and control. What does that mean? And we need to be asking those kind of questions. And probably later on we'll get into that. But really, that's the question we need to be asking. And that's how I'd summarize that. Just be good discerners of what these national news articles mean to you as an agent. I think that's a good practice. All right, two more things. We're just going to burn through these. This is advice, just as this is kind of what buyers want most from their bathrooms. So I thought, hey, this might just be a quick little. I'm gonna go through these real quick and just let you guys see this and say, this is a conversation to kind of talk to your clients about. What is it that buyers are looking for in regards to a bathroom, right? So key points: buyers in 2026 want walk-in showers for their sleek look, easy access, and future-friendly design. Wellness-inspired bathrooms with a calming feel and smart tech are the new must-have luxuries. And upgrades like walk-in showers and double vanities help sell homes faster and for more money. I would say this has been a trend for a very, very long time, to be honest. I would say that's exactly what people are looking for. Meet the experts, the people giving this advice. Omir Rayner is a licensed realtor, entrepreneur, and president of Florida Cash Home Buyers, LLC. Alexi Morgado is a Florida real estate agent and LexaWise founder. And Ashley Brewer is a real estate professional at Summit Sotheby's International Realty in Salt Lake City. Don't miss, why buyers love walk-in showers. Several of our real estate experts pointed to a single bathroom feature that buyers will be looking for in 2026, a spacious walk-in shower. Yep, bathtubs, all that kind of stuff. Nobody cares about that. Two other bathroom features buyers want: wellness. So what is this? According to Ashley Brewer, a real estate professional at Summit Sotheby's International Realty, there's another overarching trend that buyers are looking for in bathrooms: wellness. She says buyers want their bathrooms where they can feel relaxed and restore at the end of each day, and says wellness has become the new measure of luxury. Buyers want spaces that breathe, spaces that feel grounded, serene, and restorative. A clean counter, warm light, and thoughtful details are what truly make it feel calm and complete. So let's see, Morgado agrees that more technological integration into the bathroom, like touchless faucets and programmable mirrors, add to this sense of luxury at home. So that's true. I would say more color schemes and things like that is probably what they're talking about. More like wellness is that calm feeling, and then integrating less harsh movements, I guess. There's a lot of technology out there, but I would talk to people that are maybe wanting to flip homes. If you're flipping homes or you've got represent builders, talk to them about what you're seeing buyers buying. Have those kind of conversations. It might help you to be credible with your builders and stuff. Double vanities was another mention. Again, that is just nothing new. Double vanities, that's so common. That's been around forever, but obviously still a thing. So there's what's going on in the bathroom department. That's what you want to do right there. All right, let me go into one last article here. 7 AI prompts that will help real estate agents win big in 2026. Again, this is by Jimmy Burgess. You can check him out on Inman, or also has a YouTube channel. Give him a listen. 7 AI prompts that will help real estate agents win big in 2026. The agents who embrace artificial intelligence, build local authority, and deepen their value will dominate the next market cycle. And then I'm going to just jump straight down to this: the personalized business plan prompt. Every strong year begins with a plan, and AI makes it possible to create a customized roadmap in minutes instead of hours. This prompt helps clarify goals, refine lead sources, and turn vague intentions into trackable daily actions. So here's where I'll pause just for a second. Every single year, I get the agents together and we go and I'll do like a Zoom session where we talk about agent planning. And there are certain things that I'm New Year's resolutions. I'm sorry, not a fan. I don't care about them. I do like goals though. Tangible, reachable, obtainable goals is very, very important to me. And with being in real estate, we have access to data. We can look at what we've done or what the market is doing in our area and set goals based on that data. And if you're brand new, you can use the historical averages in your area. Talk to agents in your office, ask them what kind of average selling prices, that kind of stuff, and use those numbers to come up with conclusions. Now, what Jimmy has done inside of this article is giving you specific prompts to put into AI using the data of your local market. So, what is the prompt? And it says, act as an expert real estate agent, coach, and strategist. Help me build a personalized business plan for my real estate sales business for 2026 using the following details. All right, this is where you got to have your data. My 2025 production was insert volume plus transactions. These transactions broke down to X number of buyers and X number of sellers. The buyer transactions came from the following lead sources. Again, you want to know where these came from. An example would be number from referrals, number from open houses, number from online leads, etc. The seller transactions came from the following lead sources, same exact thing. My 2026 production goal is insert goal with volume plus transactions. My strengths are list them out. My weaknesses are list them out. Feel free to ask me as many questions as needed to provide me with the best detailed plan of action you can to make my goals highly achievable. Please provide me with the lead generation strategies, blah, 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 blah. It gives a whole breakdown. You can build a whole entire business from this. This prompt and exercise will provide agents with a plan they can actually execute. Now, here's the thing. I would take all those type of things and I would write them down. And then you start going backpedaling from there, saying, how many calls do I need to make? What's my conversion look like? What do I need to do? That prompt will probably generate a lot of these steps on how to do that. So I say use the prompt, break each one of those numbers down, and go back and start structuring your plan for 2026. Inside this article, he talks about the MLS data analyzer. He goes into detail about how to use the MLS and analyze the data that you have there to help give you tips and quotes and stuff like that you can use. He goes into the relationship fueler. He mentions kind of different ways to reach out to build relationships and fuel that kind of relationship with your clients and your sphere of influence. He talks about the loyalty engine, like how do I create loyalty and referrals and like different ideas and design a plan for me to do so. I'll share this article in the description. The Google Business Profile Optimizer, the 30-day local authority engine. So this is where it's talking about social media. He says like create a 30-day social media content plan that positions me as a local real estate expert in your city. Enhance the output by adding details like this. The AI recommendation strategy prompt. There you go. So a lot of cool things. A couple action items I would just say quickly off of this. We've already kind of touched on those, but I would say adopt some AI into content strategy. Utilize some of these AI tools that are out there to generate some highly localized, value-driven content that builds your local authority and expertise and ultimately your relationships that generate referrals, right? That's what you're trying to do here. So using AI to do that, what a great advantage we have to finally have AI to help us frame that. But at the same time, don't lose that human element. Don't just copy and paste. Make sure that what it's generated is brand on point. Does this align with your value, what you want to be portrayed as, and does it align with the way you want to, as human, to human to human? Does it do that? And then focus on any prompt that you give in there, all focused on value. Use AI to generate content that is specifically enhancing the client's experience, provides deep understandings for market and what's going on locally, not just generic information that you can draft social media posts from. Don't just take and copy and paste AI. Go through it with a critical eye and say, does this align with my business and what I'm trying to build this client service that I want to have with my clients? Does it do that? And then ultimately, I would lean into becoming the local authority in all that you do using these type of business plans, this type of structure in 2026. This is a great way to become that dominating force in your specific market if you do these type of things, right? But again, don't lose the human element. All right. Awesome. That is all the articles for today. I went over again. I got to get better at my time. I'm gonna try to keep these around an hour. I guess it's about an hour and a half. It's fine. I've got to go jump on to another meeting. So, guys, I appreciate you guys for being here. Thank you, guys. I do appreciate you. I hope you guys can join me in the comments. Follow me on TikTok. I'll be posting some shorts over there. A lot of conversation going on over there. It's an interesting platform. And then please subscribe, like, and follow on YouTube as well. I appreciate you guys greatly. I hope you've gotten something of value out of this that you can help yourself grow your business better. I hope it's been consistent and credible. And I appreciate you guys being here. Have an amazing day, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.